Okay, we're starting now. So we just got a more professional tripod set up here, which Dad assembled for himself, right?
Yeah, with your help.
But you did it all on your own. I just sent you the pieces. Okay,
Trial and error.
so the first thing I want to ask you about is your earliest memory of a deviled egg.
Boy, I think the earliest memory is probably when Jean would make them for me. I don't think my mother ever made deviled eggs. So I was probably 18 or 19 years old before I ever knew about deviled eggs.
So Mom made you deviled eggs when you were 18 or 19 years old?
Well, she probably made them with her mother, or her mother made them and I had them.
Okay, well, when was the first time you met Mom?
It was when I was in the 7th grade. So that would be probably, let's see, do the math.
Yeah, so you'd be like 13?
1946, or yeah, 1946, and add
Okay, so 1959.
5 years onto that, I would be 51. I was a kindergartner.
Yep,
So 7 years,
1958-ish.
8 years, it'd be 8 years, 1950,
9.
1959.
Okay.
Yeah, 1959.
But you met her in school.
But I don't think I was dating her at that point.
Right, so you were friends with her first.
Yeah,
Okay.
maybe toward the end of the year, I might have been dating her.
In 7th grade in 1959?
I think so, but I'm not sure.
And she
Maybe
lived.
it was 8th grade. It's probably 8th grade. So
Okay.
1960.
1960. And this was when you were living at 607.
Yeah. You'd
And
probably have to ask her to double check that because she would probably remember.
Mom's house was about 2-3 blocks away from your house?
2 blocks.
Okay. And when do you think the first time you went over to her house was? Right, pretty soon after you met her?
Yeah, I would have to say in 1960 sometime.
I mean, was that normal for kids back then? You'd go over to your friend's house?
Yeah, you'd go over to your girlfriend's house, but I guess I didn't know any other people who had girlfriends. And whether or not they went over to their houses, I never heard of that.
But she must have invited you over.
Yeah, and maybe she waited till I was a sophomore in high school.
Okay. So you came over to her house, you're probably like just hanging out. I mean, what did you even do back then as kids? You go over to someone's house?
Just
You
hang
go
out
watch-
at her house and watch TV.
Okay.
Usually late at night. It was usually till about 10 or 10:30
Jeez.
at night.
I mean, I know both your parents and her parents, I mean, they were kind of strict, right?
Yeah. Well, my mother really wasn't that strict about time,
Uh-huh.
but her parents probably were.
Yeah.
So I probably had to leave by 10:30 or 11 o'clock.
Uh-huh.
And they would go to bed.
Oh, and so you got to stay up and hang out.
Yeah, I'd just stay up and hang out.
Yeah.
And that's when we did. That's when we would sit on the couch and do some necking.
Uh-huh. But at some point,
And Earl had the habit of getting up and getting a drink of water every half hour.
sure.
And the door was closed, but we knew he was at the sink.
Yeah.
Getting water. And he never poked his head in to see what was going on. He just got up, got a drink of water.
But
But
he wanted to make,
that was his pattern for about 3 or 4 years.
so he knew something was going on, but he wanted to keep you guys pretty honest, right?
Yes, yes. So he would make some noise in the kitchen.
Sure. And at some point you would go, like, when was the first time you had dinner with them?
Well, like I say, it was probably in the 1960, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure when we went steady.
Okay. But at some point you had dinner with her parents over there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember vaguely meeting them, and of course, when they found out I was Catholic, that wasn't a plus. And
Because they were Lutheran.
yes, they were Lutheran at the time, and they still are.
Yeah.
Jack didn't. I don't think he had any opinion of me. He didn't know me at all, but he hadn't. I don't think he had heard anything bad about me.
And Jack was mom's brother.
Yes.
Older brother. Yes.
Yes.
Mom had one brother and one sister.
Right.
So Judy was her younger sister?
Older sister.
Older sister.
By about 2 years, I think.
Okay. And then Jack was the older brother by about 5 years.
Yeah. No, another year or two.
Year or two. Okay. So, I mean, you must have a memory of all of you sitting down to dinner together, right?
Yes, but I don't think I ever can remember Jack being at the meals, but maybe he was.
Uh-huh.
But Judy definitely was.
Okay. And you
And
got along with Judy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Judy was dating a Catholic also.
Double trouble.
Trying to think, Tom Mega.
Uh-huh.
And Tom lived on the hill, right down the hill from where Jean and Judy lived. And they dated for, I don't know, must have been a year or so. But I think that was mainly in her junior and senior year, Judy's junior and senior year of high school. But then they broke it off for some reason or other. And Tom was just a good friend. I don't think there was any kind of animosity or anything. And I think Judy started to pay attention to Dave Nybakken when he was a senior, or maybe it was a year or two after she graduated.
Okay. So when you're at this dinner, I mean, I find it hard to believe you couldn't remember the first dinner that you had there. But now that I'm thinking about like meeting Netta, I can't say I remember the exact first dinner that I had with her family. But I do remember the important pieces about it, right? Like the food is very different when you eat with someone else's family.
Yeah, but the food was not that different. It just, there was so much of it, and it was so good tasting that I must have eaten at least 2 helpings of whatever she had.
It was family style though, right? Like,
oh yeah, it was all the food was in bowls, and then you scooped out what you wanted.
Like meat and potatoes, or
Yeah.
did she, like, obviously mom's mom, grandma was a very good cook.
Oh yeah, very good cook.
But did she make like a salad or 3 courses, or
Not really a salad that I can remember. It was mainly the main course. But when I was in high school, I had from about the middle of October till January, I had to maintain a certain weight.
Yep.
So I really couldn't enjoy very many meals at her house,
Because you're a wrestler.
as I recall, because I had to maintain weight.
Yeah. So it's ironic that early, when you were 13, 14 years old, you were already maintaining weight, right?
Yeah.
And now you're on a diet again, right?
Yeah.
So it's come full circle.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So you, as a kid, you actually, the urge to make weight was so strong that you could resist eating.
Oh yeah. I mean, it was within 5 or 10 pounds,
Yeah.
and I weighed probably 150 pounds. And when I got to be wrestling, it was because I think I started out at 138 pounds. So I would probably have to cut 10 pounds or so and maintain that weight.
So you
And
must have,
as the season went on, you could gain, like they would have a 138 pounder weigh 145 or 146 pounds
yeah,
for growth.
right. But you couldn't go over a certain limit.
Right. Yeah. And my mother had, of course, when I came back to live with my mother, uh, well, I really should tell you about the stint that I had in not Eau Claire, but it's a little town in Wisconsin near Eau Claire. Altoona was what it was called.
This was
Altoona.
the Catholic school, right?
Yes, it was the Catholic school. It was a brick building that was probably 4 stories high and about 100 feet, no, maybe 200 feet by 200 feet. And it was all brick. And
Okay,
I
well,
don't,
I will take that as a note. We can do a whole episode on Altoona. Okay.
okay,
'Cause you probably have a lot to say about that.
yeah.
But let's keep the story going on how you had your first deviled egg here. 'Cause that's what I'm trying to get to. Because to me that was,
Well, that's only supposition as to when I had my first deviled egg.
but you think it was at mom's.
Helen, Helen, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't think my mother ever made deviled eggs.
Did she make boiled eggs?
Yeah, she would make boiled eggs, but my dad had a special ceramic piece that when you, it had double tops to it. One was the size of an egg,
Hmm.
and the other one was real broad. So you could, and the one that was real broad was real deep. So you could put your 2 boiled eggs in there and stir it up and eat it. Or you could turn it around and you would take off the top of the boiled egg and you would just peel a little bit off, like maybe a quarter of an inch.
Yeah.
Then you'd put butter and salt and pepper on it. And boy, was that ever good. And if you did the egg just right, it was loose in the middle.
So it was a soft boiled egg.
Oh, yeah.
So your dad back in 1950
Yeah.
had apparatus to make soft boiled eggs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you remember that because, I mean, I remember since I was a little kid, you always liked the poached egg
Yeah.
with a soft middle, which is kind of
Yeah.
like a soft boiled egg.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I don't think you've ever had a soft boiled egg, or I haven't eaten one with you.
No, probably not.
Okay, so I'll have to make one of those for you. Maybe it would trigger some additional memories.
But I don't ever. I just vaguely remember eating eating out of that kind of a dish
Yeah.
with him
So
for a breakfast.
so at Helen's house, I mean, there must have been a notable food that you had there that you didn't have somewhere else, right?
Oh gosh. I mean, everything she cooked was good. I mean, it was just top
Well,
shelf.
I know the good stuff from, once I came into the picture, like lutefisk and cheesy potatoes. Her mashed potatoes were very delicious. Jam that
Oh,
you made. I mean, but there must have been stuff before we were. I feel like some of the things we had when we were kids, she probably evolved into. She hadn't been cooking those her whole life, right?
oh yeah. She cooked her whole life.
Yeah, but those same foods.
Well, I would think they got a little bit more sophisticated with recipes and stuff, but
Like
You
Swedish.
know, I can't remember a meal that she ever made that wasn't good. I mean, they were all good.
Yeah. Well, how about Swedish meatballs? Was that one of them?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, Swedish meatballs and spaghetti, and uh, I mean, it was just all, and it was like a 4 or 5 course meal. Whereas I was used to just meat and potatoes and bread.
Yeah.
That's basically a very few vegetables, although I did have vegetables. But she would have a dessert like cookies or pie.
Jello? Did she make Jello for you guys?
Oh yeah, she made some jello.
Okay.
Yeah. And my mother made jello too, so I knew about that.
And mayonnaise cake. Probably first time you had
Oh yeah, that chocolate cake. Oh my God.
mayonnaise.
It was so moist, and when she saw me chop it up with milk or cream, she was a little bit, I think, taken aback.
Because I mean, mom doesn't like to mix her food up with different things like that. She doesn't like
No,
mushy
no,
food
she
or
doesn't.
few things mixed together. So
Yeah.
maybe Grandma Helen was a little like that too.
Oh yeah. Very, very, very prim and proper.
Okay, so do you remember in that situation the first time you kind of talked to Earl just by yourself?
You know, he wasn't a big conversation guy, but I did talk to him, but I can't remember any specific topics that we ever talked about. Uh,
I mean, would he sit out on like the back porch
he
or
he would occasionally, but usually he sat in his living room.
okay. So like if you came over, would you ever get there early before mom got there, got home and like sit down and talk to him or
Yeah, but it was just general conversation or
yeah. And
uh, I
he never put you to work like moving wood or
no, I can't say as he ever did put me to work. No,
helping you fix something. You never worked on cars or
no. Although he was a tinker, like when he had his lawnmower and stuff, he would tinker with that, like I don't know, put oil in and. But I never really saw him sharpen the blades, although I think he knew how to do that. You know, to take the blade off
yeah.
and change the oil. But I never saw him do that. I never saw him do. He was uh, he was a true administrator. He would sit back and direct people to do things. Seldom did he do the work.
Okay. Oh man,
I noticed that about him.
yeah.
Uh, he
Well,
never really got his hands dirty or got into a like. I don't think he ever changed his own oil, although he probably did.
yeah.
But I never saw him do it.
And I'll have to ask mom. Mom might know a little bit more about those things, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then you must have been over there for Easter and holidays at some point, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So,
And sometimes my mother would come along with me.
oh, she would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seldom did we eat at my house, Gene and I.
So mom wouldn't come over to your house.
Very, very little, if at all. I can't ever remember her coming over there, although I imagine she did.
And she must have known your brothers and sisters, right?
Yep. She knew Jim. She knew Dave. I don't think she had met Claire, although she might have, especially after they got married.
Uh-huh.
And then my sister Barb met Gene. So she would travel up to St. Cloud with us sometimes. Gene would.
Uh-huh.
And then, of course, being with my mother and that, I mean, so I know she met my sisters and brothers.
So what's the connection to St. Cloud?
Well, that's kind of a long story. My dad, of course, had Barbara Lee Andrews when they were in their 20s, like probably 25, 26 years old.
Uh-huh.
And she was kind of a brainy student. I mean, she was very good, and she was kind of she knew her own mind. When she said something to her mind, she would do it.
Hmm.
And somehow or another, uh, she got pregnant, or she had a miscarriage, or in high school, and then after high school, and she really didn't know what she wanted to do. So then they sent her, after this pregnancy experience, they sent her to St. Cloud to take up nursing school.
Okay, so
And,
she was the connection back to St. Cloud.
yeah, yeah. So she took nursing there in St. Cloud, got her nursing degree, and then she met this Donald Horman, who was a conservative German, and he was just very, very didn't talk much.
Yep.
Real quiet guy. And I think she ran kind of roughshod over him because she was more vocal and probably a little bit better educated than he was. And they finally got married. I can't remember what year. And then they needed money to rent a house or get an apartment. And I think my parents helped them out with that. And then they had their first child, Mary Pat Horman. And then they lived in that apartment for maybe a year or two. And then they bought this house. And again, they needed some money to put down. And I think my parents helped them out with some money. And of course, I don't think my dad must have met Don before he died.
Yeah. And I
And
don't.
I remember going to St. Cloud, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 times a year in the wintertime, because we would have to drive all the way up Marshall Avenue in St. Paul. There were no freeways at that time. All the way up Marshall Avenue until it ran into Lake Street, I believe.
Yep.
And then from Lake Street, we got to the middle of Minneapolis there, which used to have a Greyhound bus depot.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's converted into a dance hall or a theater or something. But it was right in the middle of St. Paul, or Minneapolis. And the ticket was cheaper to go from St. Cloud to Minneapolis than it was from St. Cloud to St. Paul. It was like, I don't know, $10 cheaper or something like
Yep.
that. So Dad figured he could drive that and pick her up. And so I remember doing that drive very, very often. And then we usually took Highway 10 to get to St. Cloud. There was no 94.
Yeah. But Highway 10 was a 4-lane road.
Yeah, it's a 4-lane. You went 55, 60 miles an hour.
Interesting. Okay, well, let me.
And then Don's family, I mean, they were Germans, Lefa and Ray Horman, and they had like 8 children. And somehow or another, Don introduced Clancy to Claire, and they got to know each other. And so they got to write some love letters back and forth. And then he had to go into the service up in, I think, Alaska, but I'm not sure. And then he would write to her quite often. And then after he got out of the service, she and him got married.
All right.
So it was 2 brothers marrying 2 sisters,
So
which was a little bit unusual.
I think we've determined we need a whole episode on Altoona, your Catholic school stint.
Yeah.
A whole
Yeah.
episode, probably a whole series of episodes we could do on the Hormans, but
Yeah.
let's do one on St. Cloud and your cousins up there.
Yeah.
But I think that should cover us for now. So if you want to just think of some stories for those two and take your pick, we can talk about either next time.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
And then see if you can remember your first deviled egg. That's fine if you don't, but
I
that's what
think
got
the
me thinking.
first double eggs I had were either at Helen's. They had to be at Helen's.
Yep. And you had one today, right?
Oh, I had probably 3 or 4 today.
3 or 4 halves.
No, I would say 3 or 4 eggs.
Good, good. It didn't jog your memory though.
No.
All right, all right. Sounds good, Dad. Well, we'll
All
talk
right.
again tomorrow night, okay?
All right.
Love you.
I love you too. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye.